Hello and welcome to another video. My name is Dr. Lasker. I'm a consultant radiologist and I have been asked a few times about what is so good about being a radiologist. Can I give the pros? Can I give the cons? And I actually uploaded a cons the other day, as in what I don't like about radiology, because that's the kind of guy I am. If someone says to me, would you like the good news or the bad news? I'll take the bad news first. But anyway, hopefully you watched that video. If you haven't, you can find it, link below or link somewhere on the screen, hopefully. But this video are the top 5 reasons as to why I love being a radiologist. So number 1, it's a lot of fun. There are loads of things that make it fun. I mean, the environment, you know, when you come into the hospital, I find the rest of the hospital really, really busy. Like there's loads of things going on. It's all kind of taking your attention away. And then you get into the radiology department and it's like, it's so lovely in there, and you get AC, you're sitting there with your coffee and you've got your screen and all that kind of stuff. I really like it. I find it very, very calming to be in that particular kind of environment. Everything else is just a bit too busy for me. Which kind of brings us on to the other reason as to why I think radiology is awesome. Now, this very much depends on where you work and what kind of radiology you do. Because what people don't realize is that even when you kind of go through med school, you're like, I want to be a doctor, great. And then when you finish being a doctor, people are like, what kind of doctor do you actually want to be? And then, you've got to choose, am I going surgery, am I going medicine? I mean, which kind of doctor am I really going to be? And then so I chose radiology, which will be another story for another day. You choose radiology, and then you're kind of going through radiology thinking, yeah, it's kind of cool. And then someone's like, what kind of radiologist do you want to be? And then you're thinking, okay, I could do interventional radiology, which is super cool because you're kind of getting these pipes and lines and putting into vessels. It's really active stuff. But the problem is you start having to wake up in the middle of the night because you've got a bleeder to sort out when you're on call. And it starts to get really, really busy, and it's just a busier side of radiology, and that's just like interventional radiology. I haven't even spoken about neuro-interventional radiology, where you're actually going in and sorting out strokes and that kind of thing. That's like really high stakes stuff. So you've got to make that decision. Am I going to go down the high stakes version, or am I going to go for the path of least resistance, which is kind of what I do? And so I chose diagnostic radiology, and more specifically I chose musculoskeletal radiology, which could be another video as to why I chose musculoskeletal radiology over other things. But when you choose diagnostic radiology, it is very, very 9 to 5, very, very 9 to 5. It really is, because all of a sudden you go from your time being limited by the case that you've got. Let's say you're in the middle of surgery and something goes wrong. Then, you're not exactly going to be like, well, it's 5 o'clock, gotta go, see you later. And when you're on the wards and you're doing all that stuff, if a patient gets sick, you're not going to be like, well, you know what, it's hit 5 o'clock, I'm going home. But in radiology, you can kind of do that. Genuinely, it sounds bad, and I know people are not going to like this, but it's true. When it hits 5, you can be like, well, these scans need to be done today, and these scans don't need to be done today, so I'm going to go. And even when you're on call, there is a cutoff, because you kind of report all the scans up to a certain point, and then when I say on call, working out of hours. So when you're working out of hours, you get to a certain point, and then the scan gets it becomes someone else's problem at 5:01. So any scan after 5:01 becomes someone else's deal. So that means that you kind of have a very, very definitive time as to when you come in and when you go out. And you don't understand like how much of a big difference that can make to your life. Like all of a sudden you can make dinner plans and know that you're probably going to make it. You can make plans to go to the gym and know you're probably going to make it, which is something that I feel doesn't really exist in other sides, and not all sides of medicine. But when you're doing the kind of the ER style, running onto the wards and saving the world, then it can be difficult to really leave on time and know when you're going to go. So moving on, the other reason why radiology is awesome is because you've got such interesting cases. Now think about it. If you are a doctor on the wards and an interesting patient turns up with a really weird sort of disease, right? And for a doctor, when someone comes in with a weird disease, that's interesting, and that's kind of fun for us to learn from. So I'm not saying that's something that we enjoy on behalf of the patient. It's not great, but for our point of view in learning, it's an amazing opportunity to learn from someone that is ill. And but then those interesting cases are far and few between. Like sometimes you get a murmur of like, oh, there's a really interesting case on this ward, if you want to go check it out, and you may examine the patient. But in radiology, like if you get an interesting scan, that scan is with you forever because you can save it, you know who it is, you can go through the images again later on. And so a scan from, let's say, a decade ago could still be useful for someone to learn now. And also, if you think about the number of patients that get scanned when they come into hospital, there's like thousands of scans that happen. Of those thousands of scans that happen, you're gonna have an interesting scan somewhere mixed along those. So I would actually bet, not that I really bet or anything like that, but I would say that not a day really goes by without an interesting case turning up into the radiology department. And it really is a case of, like, you see these things sometimes, you think, wow, I didn't know the human body could be like that. I didn't know the human body could look like that. I didn't know disease could act like that. And it's an amazing way to learn. And you can even go on the internet. There's a really great website called Radiopedia, and you'll be able to find like cases from all over the world and be able to sort of learn from that case and figure out, oh, okay, so that's what that looks like, and that's what I learned from. And it just shows that over years and years and years, we've been able to build a very big bank of knowledge in radiology that is still relevant to this very day. And so that's what I mean, like, this is a really great thing about radiology. It's just so interesting. Okay, so the other thing, and I'm gonna get to one of the things that I know people are gonna wanna ask about, and maybe I'll do a full video on that later, but there's a lot of demand out there for radiologists. There's just not enough radiologists out there. So you could technically go into radiology training, finish your years of radiology training, do no PhDs, do no research, do nothing really, and still end up with a job. Like, there's a job waiting for you because there is so much demand. There's not enough radiologists to deal with the number of scans that are coming along. So there's so much demand for radiology at the moment that you're doing pretty well. Like, if you finish, you'll walk into hopefully a job that you would need. And also on top of that demand, when you work out of hours, or let's say private practice, or work that's not within the hospital that you do, it's actually pretty straightforward to do, because if you think about it, let's say you are an orthopedic surgeon and you're going to do some private work, out of hours work or some extra work to supplement your income. Well, you're going to need a clinic, you're going to need the insurance, you're going to need an anaesthetist, you're going to need the equipment. But as a radiologist, to do extra work, all you need is one of these fancy screens and then upload it and have a nice cup of coffee, do the reports and move on. And for the out of hours work and for the extra work, there's a lot of demand. And there's actually an entire industry called teleradiology. You could type that in. There's companies like Everlight, Fourways, Medica, TMC. There's loads of companies that radiologists sign up to. They get set up with these screens at home, and you can turn up, either kids go to sleep, or you can spend some of your weekend and do a bit of extra work without having to actually leave the house. So, I mean, that lifestyle is just, it's just amazing. Which kind of brings us on to the next point, pay. People are always going to ask about pay. How much you get paid as a radiologist? I have no issues with saying that you do pretty well. Now, depending on where you work in the world, you can do better than others. So there are some parts of the world, such as Canada, America, Australia, where the radiologists are making an absolute mint. They are making some serious money. I mean, my mind boggles the kind of money that some of those guys are making. In the NHS, it's not like that. Because we're sort of government-led, you have a standard income that everyone will make being a radiologist in the NHS. And you can actually go onto Google and type in consultant salary in the NHS, and you'll find out exactly what kind of salary one would be expecting if you hang around in the NHS for long enough. But as the out of hours work, the work that you do outside of the NHS, that can be slightly more lucrative or easier to get to, which is something I alluded to earlier on the previous point, in that you don't actually have to do too much work to get extra work. So if you do another subspecialty, such as, let's say, orthopedics, I don't know why I like orthopod, so I'm not hating on you guys, but orthopedics, plastics, if you're going to do extra work or make any extra money, you've got a lot of things to think about, you've got to meet people, get the patients in. But with radiology, you don't really need to do that. Like, there's loads of companies where the scan's already done and they're thinking, can someone please just come and report their scan as soon as possible? And so the pay can be quite good, depending on how many hours you work. And I mean, I guess it's true with most things in life. The more hours you put in, the more money you make. But I think with radiology, it's slightly easier to do that. Like, literally, the more hours you sit in front of the screen and report, the more money you make. I mean, it's as simple as that. Anyway, I hope that was useful. I will do more videos. I think clearly someone's going to ask me about pay at some point, like to actually literally go into the actual pay of a radiologist in the UK. So I will do more videos. If you do like the video, do like, do subscribe, leave a comment, you know, give me some ideas. What would you like to learn from me? And finally, I just want to do a quick plug. If you haven't done so already, please do listen to my podcast. It's called Two Medics. It's a lot of fun. We do it every single week and we talk about medical things, what it's like to be a doctor in the NHS. Anyway, speak to you soon. Bye.